Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all my dear students. Welcome back for another video on footprints without feet. Children, this is my fourth video on footprints without feet, wherein we have been studying about a scientist named Griffin. And Griffin has discovered a rare drug. After taking in that rare drug, after eating that rare drug, anybody can go invisible, and thus Griffin has been taking disadvantage of this. So children, we have seen that he set fire to his landlord's house in London, and then he ran away and took shelter in a big London store. There he fed himself and clothed himself, but then again next morning when he failed to wake up on time, he was he was being chased by people of the big London store. Then he decided to go to Drury Lane, which was famous for its theatrical drama companies and shops. So he entered into one of those shop, and then he had done some makeover, right? He wore some bandages over his head, and then he wore a false nose, and then big whiskers here, and then hat again, and took a good wardrobe, right? Then while coming down, he looted the shopkeeper, and when again people started running after him for chasing him, he took a train and reached to a village named Iping. Now Iping was a very small village, and generally in small villages what happens is, if something new occurs, people come to know, everyone in the village come to know about it, right? So people were very curious about his arrival at this moment of time, because no visitor used to visit this place during the winter season, right? Now still he managed to get a room. He managed to get two rooms in an inn, and the owner was Mrs. Hall. She tried to know about the scientist Griffin, but Griffin said that he had recently met an accident wherein his face is damaged, so he has been wearing bandages. But and he said that he has come there to live in solitude. वो वहाँ अकेले रहना चाहता है, इसलिए आया है. But Mrs. Hall was a lady, who is always curious to know about people. But at this point of time, he left Griffin because she was paid in advance. Now, the looted money from Drury Lane, it did not last long. तो ज़्यादा time नहीं चली, वो खत्म हो गई. Now when Mrs. Hall has to be given more money as a part of rent, right, as a part of charges of the room, Griffin said that the money is over, and he is expecting a check. As soon as it will come, he would pay the amount to Mrs. Hall. But then after, next morning, early in the morning, Griffin wakes up, he takes that drug, he becomes invisible. So all his bandages and dress and wardrobe, everything was lying on the bed, right? Then he moves somewhere. Where does he go? He goes to house of clergymen. Now clergyman, you remember I told that clergyman is a male member of the Christian church committee. So he entered a clergyman's house, wherein the clergy and his wife were sleeping upstairs, but they heard some noise in the study room, so they quietly came down. But when they entered, they could not see anybody, but the drawer was open, and the housekeeping money was missing. So it was very sure that somebody had stolen, but the thief was not seen by them. And that was the very first incident in the early morning. Then after, something strange happened the same morning. What was that? That was Mr. and Mrs. Hall found the door of Griffin's room open, which was really next to impossible, because Griffin used to keep his door shut or locked. Now when they found this room open, they quietly went upstairs and they peeped into the room to check whether Griffin was there or not. But when they peeped inside. जब उन्होंने उस रूम में झांका, what did they see? That the bed was already left early in the morning. That means there was nobody, because the bed sheet can be seen crumbled and the dress was lying there, the bandages were lying there. So they thought that Griffin was not present in the room. So that they thought that that is the best time to go inside and check his room, right? So what did they do, children? They went inside. Now when they went inside, although they saw nobody, but Griffin was already present there. How? He was invisible now. Now when he was invisible there, they could not see them. But when Mrs. Hall stood at a point, he heard somebody sniffing at her ear. किसी के खड़े होने का उसको एहसास हुआ, किसी के सांस लेने का एहसास हुआ. So she was scared. So next moment, now when somebody's sniffing sound was heard there, that means definitely Griffin was present there. The next moment what happened? There was a hat lying on the bed. So automatically that hat came flying into air and hit Mrs. Hall's face. Now for Mrs. Hall and Mr. Hall, it must be that something spiritual is working. कुछ भूतिया हो रहा है वहाँ पे. Definitely some spirits must be there. But actually Griffin was angry because they entered his room, right? So he had thrown the hat into the air so that it can hit Mrs. Hall. The very next moment, there was a wooden chair. Now Griffin, because he was invisible, and when he is pushing the chair towards Mrs. Hall, वो chair Mrs. Hall और Mr. Hall की तरफ आगे बढ़ती गई हवा में, right? Actually Griffin is pushing it, but because he is invisible, it seems as if the chair is getting pushed by itself. So Griffin pushed the chair so much that to the extent that both Mr. and Mrs. Hall, they were thrown out of the room. वो रूम से बाहर निकलना पड़ा. And the moment they were out of the room, immediately the door got shut by itself and it was locked from inside. अंदर से ही किसी ने उसे लॉक कर लिया, लैच कर लिया, right? We have done so far till here. Okay, right. Now we are going to move further. Let us see. So children, we have done till here. All of a sudden Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear. So this is what we have done. We have read that she heard some sniff. Then a moment later means after some time. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost leapt up and dashed itself into her face. Why? और उसके हवा में उड़ते ही उसके चेहरे पे आ गया. Then the bedroom chair became alive. That means what is the meaning of alive here? That means the bedroom chair started moving by itself. Springing into the air, it charged straight at her legs foremost. So it all of a sudden started coming, springing into the air. That means वो हवा में उड़ते हुए आई और उसके पैरों के पास आके रुक गई. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. So once both the husband and wife, that is Mr. and Mrs. Hall, they were out of the room, the door got slammed. जोर से पटक के बंद हो गए दरवाजे and it was locked from inside. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. Hysterics means behaving in a crazy way, right? In a mad way. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits and that the stranger had somehow caused these to enter into her furniture. So what has happened, children, here? When they were out of the room, when they were thrown out of the room, Mr. and Mrs. Halls, they thought that this room is haunted now. यहाँ पे कुछ spiritual है, यहाँ पे कोई आत्मा है, right? They thought that because before it was not such, पहले कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ. But here Mrs. Hall thought that these all things, this witchcraft and magic and this black magic is all done by the new person that who has come to their inn. And what has happened here, children?